Members of Eveleth Mine's 500 steelworkers arrived in Eveleth this afternoon, seeking answers to questions about their future.
I think everything will go good.
Hope we keep our job.
Union leaders called today's special meeting to update workers on contract negotiations and explain why Eveleth was extended until 11 o'clock tomorrow night when 1,300 Hibbing Taconite and National Steelworkers are on strike.
Because there was nothing on the table that we could even bring back, we thought that for the best interest of our membership, this was the right direction to go and try to continue to negotiate.
Daniel says Eveleth Mines offered the union a one-year contract extension. The union countered with a 6-month proposal and a list of demands, including pension benefit guarantees in the event the plant closes. The company up until this point has said no. Sources tell News 6 if a shutdown occurred, it would mean a $10 million payout for Eveleth Mines, money the company just doesn't have.
We need some assurances, and all we're asking for them is some signatures and guarantee us that. And I guess they're not willing to do that, and that's what's scary. If they're not willing to do that, maybe they're not willing to keep our place going. We don't know.
And it's that uncertainty that's kept Eveleth steelworkers from striking up until now. It's been a tough year for the company, including a 5-month shutdown with workers under the gun to cut costs. The company is also having trouble with one of its partners, Armco. When Armco purchased 800,000 tons of Brazilian pellets instead of Eveleth, 150 employees lost their jobs. That, in part, is why the union is also demanding a bigger say in corporate decisions.
Our members have lived up here at Eveleth Taconite with the insecurity of the future of this mine for long enough, and in my opinion, it's time that the management of this operation be opened up so that the workers have a chance to participate in these fundamental decisions.
With the most immediate decision being whether to strike.
Union leaders here say, keeping the company's precarious financial situation in mind, they are looking at every alternative to avoid a strike. But Eveleth steelworkers say if push comes to shove, they too will join their neighbors on the picket lines. In Eveleth, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
Most of us have seen the damage the Great Flood of 1993 has caused in the Midwest, but while the worst flooding may be over in some areas, the receding water levels are revealing the true devastation. Volunteers and donations are still needed, and now Northlanders are being asked to help.
You can drop off anything from water, toiletries, some paper products, non-perishable food items, flashlight batteries, clothes, baby food. Those are just some of the items that they really need.
Local officials have announced a Northland flood relief drive. Non-perishable donations will be accepted at participating Jubilee, IGA, and ICO locations around Duluth and Superior from now until August 15th. That's the day the Dukes baseball team will play a flood aid benefit game at Wade Stadium.
People can donate either cash or non-perishable items, and the cash will go directly to the Red Cross. They'll make sure the people in the Midwest get the money that's needed, and the JCs are going to truck down the non-perishable items themselves. So it's we're happy to be a part of it.
What copies each one?
2 pages.
Oh,
Yeah, you got it there?
or what?
I just wanted a copy, so, you know, I need 1 day longer.
1 day longer, that's all we need.
They ain't gonna get one pretty good as we're not.
I'm real concerned over what I've been hearing from the kids. Real shaken up over it. I wasn't sure whether part of it, was true, but it's enough to concern me right now.
Deborah's daughter did the right thing. While playing with her friends in a playground outside her home Wednesday night, she noticed a suspicious man and quickly called for help.
Me and my friend were walking home, and some guy was like looking at all the kids at the park, and he was following some other kids, you know. And
that same night, less than a mile away, police were notified of a similar incident here at the intersection of 38th Avenue East and 2nd Street in Eloise. And last night in the same area, a 10-year-old boy was nearly kidnapped from this gas station at 4202 East 2nd Street. Police say there was a common denominator.
It seems to be in the East End area of Superior. Some of them happened after it gets dark, and I guess it's a good time to remind parents that after it gets dark, let's get our young children in the house or at least in the front yard playing so we know where they are at.
Duke and Michelle, the Missouri River crested here in Kansas City just 11 days ago. And as you can see, the destruction the flood waters left behind is simply unbelievable. In this area alone, 350 trailers were underwater for 3 days. Nothing is salvageable. For families that lived in these homes, the struggle of starting over lies ahead. Joining me now is Major Ron Gordon from the Kansas City Salvation Army and also Charles Green, who's seen the destruction that these floodwaters caused firsthand. Charles, tell us a little bit about what happened to your home.
Our home got completely flooded out. The water got clear on top of the roof, and we're just now getting back in here at the court to kind of see what we can salvage. And we've been living in motels and eating out, and Salvation Army's been helping us out, and we've got vouchers and stuff from the Salvation Army. And
how traumatic has this been for you and your family?
Oh, it's more than I couldn't express, you know, what's it really the feeling me and my wife have and stuff like that, because we have lost everything, and we just got to start from scratch again. And
you're definitely going to have to travel the road to recovery, and hopefully that will be made easier for you with the help of volunteers. Is there more help needed that volunteers can help with?
Yes, Stephanie. There's approximately 850 families who have lost their homes or been forced out because of the flood here. And in this particular trailer park, 350 people have to move entirely and relocate. But the others, many of them have to clean up their places. They need help with cleaning up. We need help with our disaster center, need help with all kinds of things that are going to be assisting these people. It's going to go on for months, and that the volunteer need is great.
Again, Duke and Michelle, as we said, the battle to recover from this flood is far from over. The cleanup is more tedious and takes more time, but it's needed just as much as the sandbagging was. Reporting from Kansas City, Kansas, I'm Stephanie Guadian. Now back to you.
Years ago, Duluth's downtown was transformed into a showpiece that has won praise statewide. But these days, that showpiece is a little worse for wear. City workers intend to fix up the bricks on Superior Street and spruce up the amenities that go with the bricks. Things like the wrought iron lampposts and the concrete flower pots. They also have plans for the decorative bollards that line the street. The original design included 700 of them, but after numerous complaints from frustrated parkers, many of them will be removed.
If you get to a point where you say, well, that's just not needed, or it doesn't work very well, there's no sense keeping them on, in place when you know that the best answer, the best solution is to take them out.
200 of the original 700 bollards will be ripped out and stored. But these bollards are different. They serve a very important purpose. They protect these old-fashioned, very expensive lamps from misguided vehicles.
They hit them first before they get to that lamppost.
The entire streetscape repair project will cost $1.2 million. $200,000 of that will go for fixing up the amenities, which includes things like lamp painting and bollard removal. That $200,000 will come from a grant from the Duluth Economic Development Authority. The rest of the project is funded by the Municipal State Aid Fund. Superior Street is expected to be completed by the end of September. First Street and the avenues will be fixed up over the next 2 years. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Bobby Lindbergh told a co-worker she was afraid her husband would kill her just a few days before that fear became a reality Tuesday night. The young wife and mother had just filed for divorce a week ago and was planning to get another restraining order. But her chance for getting out of an abusive marriage was abruptly stopped when her husband, John Lindbergh, brutally attacked and killed her with a machete before he took his own life.
It seems to me like right now, if I were a woman, this would be the most dangerous city in Minnesota because 10 women have been killed, I understand, since November. And as many women and men that we work with, the men who come to groups here, we can't guarantee or offer women total protection.
Tina Olson says better protection for women means big changes in our justice system. She and other advocates against domestic violence want the courts to get tougher on batterers.
More than that, we need to pull in the people that see how this violence affects the community. We need to pull in law enforcement, ask them their questions, and we need to pull in the judges who sit and make decisions on men who are convicted of 5th degree or felony, levels of violence, and ask their input.
Dick Stapp counsels men on how to control their anger. He would like to see new laws in place that require mandatory counseling for abusive men.
I think we've tried to look at it, well, let's get people in on a voluntary basis first, but that hasn't worked. We need to make a statement and say this is not okay, this is against the law, and we're going to take charge.
Experts say women in abusive relationships need to build a support network to help them out of danger.
Support, observers say, must come from the community. Ironically, today, neighbors came forward telling us that they had been aware of an abusive relationship between the Lindberghs for years. They described John Lindbergh as an angry, violent man who flew into fits of rage, but they said they felt there was nothing they could do. In West Duluth, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
It's not on the other tables. We will not accept anything less.
Our union has negotiated successfully very meaningful guarantees over the retiree issues with the steel company parents. Does provide, I think, a lot of impetus for the iron ore companies to step up to the table and conclude these talks. On the other hand, they have a long history of trying to hide behind corporate partnership structures to evade their obligations and liabilities. Those are large obligations, as we saw in the reserve case, $100 million.
All right. Do we like this sign? 2660, do we like it?
With you about that subject.
The fundraising committee has been working really hard for the last 6 months, coming up with a lot of projects. We have a lot of things planned for the future: community dances, picnics, cookbooks, whatever we can think of.
Later that day, we will shut down. Then we're going to be having an auction here on September 11th to auction off the equipment, and I hand in my keys on the 15th of September.
All the issues, but basically Bill and Dale are now in the process of, and over the next year and a half, you're going to be hearing your lives and whether it's your business.
Natural resources must deal with. People live in northern Wisconsin because they care about the quality of life and truly enjoy an abundance of natural resources. But not only do we enjoy our lakes and fishing in the summer, but hunting, wildlife, and recreation are very important in northern Wisconsin.
It's been 22 days since workers here at National Steel Pellet Company in Keewatin set up their picket lines. Local 2660 of the United Steelworkers has been without a contract since August 1st.
At the present time, it's short. I mean, we've had strikes as far as 137 days, so 22nd day of this isn't really too bad.
Workers at Hibbing Taconite are also entering their 4th week of striking. Workers at Eveleth Mines have managed to hold off a strike so far, while workers in Keewatin remain on the picket lines with no talks scheduled anytime in the near future. Union officials in Keewatin say union members will start getting some money for living expenses soon, but the question is, will it be enough?
Well, I think if you as a person that goes out and works for a living, at any time that you miss a week of work, it's starting to affect your pocketbook and you're planning on what you've got to do, and especially at this time of the year when the children are going to school, it makes it that much tougher on the individuals.
The atmosphere around the picket lines in both Hibbing and Keewatin is filled with uncertainty. The negotiation process has been a slow and unsuccessful one so far. Strikers have vowed to stay on the picket lines for as long as it takes, but as the weeks go by, workers are starting to feel the impact of their actions. On the Iron Range, Derek Hines, News 6.
Number of years ago, it would have all been different. Most dangerous parts.
It gets scarier the longer it goes by. I start thinking that maybe she can't get a hold of me, and that's real scary. I just try to keep my hope.
Folsom, E-O-M.
He'd flip out.
Yeah, you said that there was a similar situation to this?
About a year ago, he was shooting at the cars going by.
The son was mentally ill. He was schizophrenic, and he was on medication. He's been out to the state hospital before, and they put him on the drug. And when he's on the drug, he's perfectly normal. Nothing wrong with him. But when he gets off the drug, he thinks that he's getting better. But if you know anything about it, you aren't.
From jackets to caps to bandanas, gang-related clothing is becoming a common sight in Duluth schools, and police are concerned. Once thought to be just a big city problem, authorities say gangs and gang-related crimes are very much a reality here in Duluth.
Well, by no means do we have the problems that any of the larger metropolitan areas have, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen. Anybody that tells you differently is a fool.
Graffiti like this and gang-related clothing is how gang members show their strength and gain a foothold in a community. To weaken that power, Duluth police are now pushing for a ban that would restrict students from wearing certain types of clothing to school. Sergeant Roger Waller says when gang attire is worn to school, it creates an atmosphere of intimidation and fear in the classroom.
And, by wearing their hats and their bandanas and their armbands and leg bands and jackets, it gives them more power, and other students are afraid of them.
One Central Hillside resident who's had problems with gangs in her neighborhood thinks a dress code is a good idea.
I think so. I think it would weaken them.
But the ban was dropped from the district's new discipline policy after some school board members questioned whether a dress code would violate student rights. But police say when it comes to gangs and their potential threat, it shouldn't be a question of individual rights, but one of safety for every student. In the meantime, the policy remains up for review. In Duluth, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
So what we did is we just kicked back and went slow. We didn't go as far. You find it because you walk by here right after. Yeah. And so that's what we do is we just take people where they're at.
Numerous different types of chemicals were found in the building where these materials that were put in these drums came from. So that's one suspicion, and then the fact we've got different stories from different people, inconsistent stories about what was put in the drums.
Most of us that work for the project volunteer, and the boat builders are not, although, you know, they're doing a very good service for us. We still have to raise money to pay those folks and for the materials to restore the ship and that type of thing.
And this is where we're supposed to live. In this part.
I forgot my pillow and I forgot my plant.
We discovered that we forgot one of the major pieces, the CD tower. So we didn't do it quite as well as we thought.
We'll be going night. My crew will be going night shift tomorrow night. So we'll get to start the night shift right away, and I'm glad I'm going back.
So how do you feel having to work on Labor Day?
We've already taken many cuts and changes in our delivery of services, and I know the push is for outpatient, and I agree with that, but not for all patients.
relieve a lot of questions we have, since we don't have a lot of medical background. You don't know the right questions to ask and stuff. You just believe what they say. So like right now, that's why we hired the lawyers to find out for us.
Day 42 on the picket line in Keewatin, and the mood has grown somber. Miners throw horseshoes or warm up in the tent, but concern is growing that their wait could grow longer.
Well, strikes, you always lose on a strike. You always lose. You know, it's uncomfortable anytime you're not getting a paycheck. Thank God there are some spouses working, you know, but you know, what are you going to do? You got to keep trying. Maybe go out and work for a while somewhere else.
Pamela Thomason and her husband Carl have worked in Keewatin for nearly 20 years. They rode out the 1977 strike, but say the latest shots fired in this battle are more ominous.
Just hope they talk nice to each other, you know, communicate. That's the only way it's going to get settled. You can't do it without communicating.
That communication is growing strained. National Steel told workers Friday it was seeking other suppliers of taconite and that the Keewatin plant would be idled indefinitely. And although one union communication says negotiations are set to resume next Tuesday, the company's chief negotiator had planned only to discuss the effects of a shutdown.
That he would be willing to meet to discuss the effects of idling. And in my discussions with him today, he said no date or time has yet been set for that meeting.
In other words, says Strong, workers could be laid off. The future of the mine could be slipping away, and the union could be forced to make significant concessions.
I'm sure the union is going to have to do something like that to save those jobs.
But for now, the union says only that it wants to continue negotiations. And while the company's latest moves are considered by the union to be intimidation tactics, these workers say they won't be intimidated.
On the outside, they don't want to be. You know, they really try hard not to be. But what are you going to do, you know? I can't speak for everybody either. I can only speak for myself. So I'm not quite intimidated yet. I've been through this lots.
In Keewatin, Derek Hines, News 6.
Project, and they got $10 million that they can use, but they don't want to use it. Why don't they want to use it? Tell their members ratify.
Any comments for the media today?
That's right. What do you think,
But in the end, the only place where we resolve labor disputes is at the collective bargaining table, and that's what we're attempting to do tomorrow. And we will certainly leave no stones unturned in terms of trying to resolve this fairly, equitably, quickly.
The deterioration problems on this bridge include not only the deck of the bridge, which you can see the asphalt layer is crumbling.
Like many bridges in Duluth, this one in Chester Bowl is in bad shape. In fact, without the proper funding to fix it, it may have to be closed. Ken Larson, a Duluth city engineer, has been monitoring the bridge's condition closely as it's gone from bad to worse. The city of Duluth has recognized about 13 bridges that are in need of some type of repair, with Chester Creek Bridge topping the list. It has deteriorated to such a degree that it will have to be replaced. Duluth is faced with the same dilemma as many other cities, an aging infrastructure that needs immediate attention. Built back in the 1930s, this bridge wasn't designed to carry a modern-day traffic load. The bridge has recently been restricted to 3 tons, and concrete blocks have been put in place of the unstable guardrails. Still, Larson maintains the bridge is safe, at least for now.
What we have there now in itself is deteriorating to the point where at some point in time it won't be able to safely carry any traffic.
The city is actively seeking federal highway funds to repair Duluth's worst bridges, but there's no guarantee we'll get it. There's a pressing need nationwide to increase funding for the replacement of old bridges.
The deterioration will accelerate, and we'll be facing more and greater problems and greater costs as the prevention and the attention to these bridges is delayed.
Larson says the earliest the city could receive funding is 1995. Meanwhile, the bridge will remain open, and inspection is due again this fall. In Duluth, Amy Rutledge, News 6. The Douglas County Courthouse has been like a second home for Sam Sekala. The 38-year-old Superior man has appeared here at least a dozen times in the past 7 months on everything from perjury to harassment charges. With many more charges still pending, prosecutors hope to wrap up the case today under a plea bargain agreement. In exchange, Sekala pleaded guilty to 3 harassment and vandalism charges. He was sentenced to 9 months in jail. He's already serving a 4-year sentence for perjury and battery.
I think justice has been served. There's been a combination of sentences that adds up to 57 months. That's not anything to laugh at.
Prosecutor Dan Blank worked extensively on what seemed to be an endless stream of complaints against Sekala. Today, he said he's glad it's finally over.
And in the big scheme of crimes that we handle, for me, looking at it from the county's perspective, it took more time than it deserved to the people that were directly involved. You probably could never put enough time into it. So
people like Dave Stannard, who says Sekala constantly threatened him and his family and destroyed his property.
At least we can feel assured that he's not going to be out for a while anyway.
Stannard, along with a small group of Sekala's former neighbors, say they'll continue the fight to keep him behind bars.
When time for his parole hearing comes up, we will have our letter writing campaign already in force, writing to the parole officer and stating our views.
Sekala was transported back to the Oshkosh prison today, but the story doesn't end here. A number of civil charges are still pending against him. In Superior, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
What's going on? I just want to be there just to make sure that everything goes well. I thought everything, you've got to do something. So we're looking at some different options. We're having a resolution drawn now, put together by the attorney's office that we're going to review and possibly bring back to the council in a week or so. And hopefully that will revive it.
Well, I hope that I'll have an answer sometime today. I am, to my knowledge, to even review the data. A memo like this, which discusses pulling employees out of Superior, saying we better not tell anybody about it because we'll look bad. Is that right? How many of those people that phoned those city councilors are going to lose their jobs because they didn't want to look bad?
We believe that with the heavy traffic, bus and truck traffic over the last years, that there's been some rocking motion of that, and it's tended to deteriorate a lot more rapidly than we would have expected.
Regardless of whether we win or lose, we walk out of the courtroom and we say, well,
who've taught me those important lessons. And I guess if I could sum up in a word, the atmosphere I hope to create, it is a respectful atmosphere. And I don't mean respect for the person who happens to be occupying the bench. I mean respect for the process.
History up till now is the very limited number of films. There used to be flight. It's kind of what we picked up on, is that there's finally enough product. Other theaters in Dallas now there's 3.
Plus, this has a very broad base of interest. I mean, it doesn't appeal to visitors. There's a lot of local interest. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but you know, a lot of people from this community go to the Twin Cities, to the St. Paul Science Museum to see the various films down there, and they're going to be able to do that sort of thing here now.
Now I'd be pleased to answer any questions that you might have. Because here in Minnesota, for example, we have a 2-year budget at a time. What's going to happen, you know, people kind of get out to Washington and they get kind of caught up in the Washington situation and things that go on out there, and they kind of tend to lose their heads sometimes. And I think 2 terms is about the limit of what it should be.
Because the message is to the person who's writing the check. Help prevent forgery by please showing your photo ID with check. And so that's the big message. If we can all just get in the habit of, when we hand our check to the clerk, just hand your photo driver's license with it too.
Try to stay behind everybody and try to just go along for the ride. Nobody thought that National would do what they're doing to you people. We knew Evelyn would do it to us. Even though we were walking around the Capitol just like National, arm in arm, saying, we're buddies, we're going to work together and cut costs, we knew if we let go of that arm, they'd stab us in the back.
That we will not restore the middle class to America. We will not restore the American dream without building the labor movement and collective bargaining and letting workers get in there and negotiate decent wages and decent incomes and decent pensions.
Back to Granite City, where we roll the steel that includes the iron that you're mining up there, and we're going to tell the people back home that when
we hope that they do sooner or later, but it's nice to
sure she want to read it, but you can find out in there how Phyllis, his wife, draws the line down the middle of their bed. We want to congratulate you on this book and long relationship we've had.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
One of the flowers, if you want to get the other 3 books.
My word.
When Make-A-Wish comes in, it's this rippling effect. The child's wish is granted, the family's involved, memories are made, pictures fill picture albums that ordinarily wouldn't be filled.
Or children who have been diagnosed with life-threatening illnesses, severe enough in all probability they're not going to survive to their 18th birthday. I make that clarification here.
We had this edict back in the mid-70s that labeling, if you could provide some overlays that give thinking about those things. UL certified or ANSI.
If companies are not thinking globally in the long run, that may hurt them even in their domestic marketplace.
When you're putting your do that in your product, but it's something to think about, the packaging of your product.
Tom Banks was telling me, or Bob, they have a translator to communicate with him. Today, he was fluent.
Sure. I mean, people learn very quickly. I'm in
Okay, the kids, they got pledges from family and friends for per hour of community service that they do today, and we're doing 8 hours, and so then they will collect the pledges tomorrow and through this next week, and then that money will be used for the water project.
I find it difficult here to watch the governor offer economic incentives to settle a labor dispute. I don't think that's personally the proper approach.
Well, I find it very disheartening that on the one hand the governor pledges strong cooperation between the Minnesota House of Representatives and the governor's office, but in his bad situation we find that he is lacking within that spirit.
Nine months after her death, Sherry Cadine's family said today's verdict is a bittersweet victory.
Happy, relieved. It's just been a real tense time, and I guess we're just happy and satisfied that justice has been done. But it won't bring her back. But justice is done.
During the 4-week-long trial, the Cadines and the family of Marvin Freeman sat on opposite sides of the courtroom and did not speak to one another. But today, the victim's father says he does not harbor any resentment towards his former son-in-law.
You gotta forgive those that trespass against you, too.
The prosecution argued successfully that Freeman fatally shot Sherry Cadine while she was working at the Duluth group home last January. The state maintains Freeman was seeking revenge because Cadine reported him to the IRS for tax evasion. Freeman has maintained his innocence up to the very end. After he was sentenced to life imprisonment this afternoon, he stated to the court, quote, "I did not kill Sherry. I wouldn't do that to my 2 little girls," end quote.
Well, it's not snowing or raining, so
Pleased that you're finding a way to save a grand old building and provide some housing for our city.
In this neighborhood, because it was built residentially so many years ago, without any apartments, older people in the neighborhood, as they grow and decide to move on, do not have the choice to stay in this neighborhood in an apartment facility.
That's what we're doing. Like that, we're there, miniature First Nation.
Over 165,000 men will get prostate cancer this year, and current statistics show 35,000 of them will die from the disease. The experts say many men die because they don't see their doctor early enough for medical intervention to help. Doctors say many men fear and dislike the rectal exam needed up until now for early detection. The American Cancer Society is hoping the less invasive blood test will encourage more men to be checked for prostate cancer.
A simple blood test is perhaps the easiest of all kinds of testing to do. It's relatively painless, and it would seem at this point that it is a worthwhile test.
The blood test, called prostate-specific antigen or PSA, measures levels of protein that seeps out of the prostate gland if a tumor is present or if the gland is enlarged. Researchers say elevated protein levels are a possible indicator of prostate cancer.
There's evidence to suggest that the kinds of cancer that PSA picks up are the kinds of cancer that we should be concerned with.
As well as a much surer method of finding early prostate cancers, the Journal of American Medicine suggests the blood test may help reduce the number of deaths because men may be more willing to undergo the blood test than a digital rectal exam.
Obviously, a blood test can't cure cancer, but if it helps to find the disease in an early stage, it's already done more than any drug can do with advanced prostate cancer. At the Duluth Clinic, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Next Tuesday, when did you say? Monday. 23rd, between what hours will people be going out?
Between 9 and 3. There is in our Savior's Lutheran Church, 49th and Grand.
As the numbers have stabilized, about 600 households a month. But the fact that more children seem to be in need of this, more families, more low-income families, working families in need, that is definitely a concern.
Here's a first aid kit. We would take that with us. I would grab that. And the fire extinguisher is here on the floor.
Mary Forseth today was busy teaching these kindergartners from MacArthur West how to leave her school bus in an emergency. It's a lesson nobody hopes they will actually have to use, but statistically the odds are they may. Statistics indicate Minnesota is 25% above the national average for deaths resulting from school bus accidents. In the past 11 years, 44 people have died in school bus accidents. One of the biggest dangers, according to Duluth bus drivers, is motorists who fail to stop when this stop arm is extended.
They know that we're going to stop and they want to get around us sometime, and I think that's our major problem, is trying to make sure that the children safely get onto our buses and that motorists allow us the time to do that.
State law requires motorists to stop at least 20 feet away from a school bus that has a stop arm extended or red flashing lights. This law applies to both oncoming traffic and traffic approaching the bus from the rear.
When you see the bus and you see the amber lights going, that's to warn drivers that we are going to be coming to a stop. And when the red lights come on, that we are either going to unload students or load students, to be very careful and not to go around the bus.
On the Gordon boats that were overbagging on bluegills, and the tip said that they had a large number of fish, but he didn't know how many that they had. And he didn't leave his name, and I didn't know who he was, but really he's probably the real hero of this whole thing, because he did stop a big poaching operation. Fillet, 40 fillets per package. We had a large number of.
Part of this meeting, right?
So there are going to be people answering questions, public concern, or
Well,
are you just
Art Spaces, the reoccurring theme I keep hearing is that they want more programs for the youth in this community. They would like to have some indoor basketball courts, utilize the swimming pool. So we want to have this as a recreational activity so that kids have something to do.
Tutoring, nutrition, everything else that we do.
In Duluth, and a lot of it seems to have to do with kids.
There's a lot of things in the actual construction and the actual bricks and mortar that make this building perfect for what we would want to try to do in terms of housing.
Wonderful artist, very all of the research, and worked with Ross and Will and
St. Louis County, let me get this one over here. St. Louis County.
Child abuse crosses all boundaries. It happens in every ethnic group and every economic group. There are, however, similarities in child abuse cases. Perhaps the most common thread, the slim chance the abuse will ever be reported.
If you have a victim who's 6 months old or a year old, they couldn't report it, they wouldn't know how. Or you might have a victim who's 10 or 12 or 13, and the idea of going in and reporting a family member is just such an enormous step to take that it often doesn't get reported. So it's a very significant problem.
A problem Doyle says needs more attention, not only from the state, but also from local communities. The state attorney general was in Superior today to talk to more than 100 police officers, prosecutors, and social service workers. The thrust of the workshop focused on improving local efforts in the investigation and prosecution of child abuse cases.
It's helpful for us because we have seen some tough child abuse cases where the investigators and the investigation is put on trial and the focus is taken away from the actions that got the defendant into the courtroom in the first place.
Officials say it is the initial interview with a child abuse victim that often leads to trouble. It is hoped workshops such as today's will eventually reduce the number and improve the quality of the interviews. But for now, authorities are faced with an epidemic that strikes nearly 50,000 Wisconsin children a year. It is a problem no community, no matter how small, is immune to.
And I think the day is gone where we feel that we have safety in a little rural community and it's just the big cities that have to face these issues. We have the issues right here.
In Superior, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
As we walk around, do you know what we talked about?
This is a bag.
Well, that's borderline.
Okay, I'll go with you.
Can you wear the hood without the mask? No?
Grandma,
we'll take care of it.
The great pumpkin.
The great pumpkin?
The great pumpkin.
The big honcho man in this school. We'll talk about...
Definitely want to dress warm, but you want to be very visible. So if you can wear your Halloween, something warm underneath your Halloween costume, but be very visible, bright caps and mittens for the children, and just be very careful when they're crossing streets, not running across, staying together, and hopefully having an adult with them while they're walking around in their neighborhoods.
I, like many others here, will become homeless, looking for some alternative space. If indeed the city's intention is to provide for the welfare and safety of the people living in this building, eviction is not going to solve that problem. We will be living in substandard housing, probably illegal spaces, many of us.
It is throwing
It's just going to take and help my business, of course. It eliminates one competitor. There's so many different competitors coming into this area now with the Walmarts and do operation up on the hill air shop. And
I really depend on the people from the...
I just need something so I can say...
After she'd been reported missing from her home. So at that time, what it appeared to us is that she was just absent from home of her own free will and had no reason to believe that she was in any particular danger.
We have, the weather has what some people call mood swings, where it swings back and forth from colder than normal to warmer than normal to wetter than normal and drier than normal. And all of those things, if you plot them on a chart, they go up and down and up and down, and eventually you draw a line through the middle and you say that's normal. And really, what's normal in Duluth is that the weather will change.
Additional, it was the same information that we've heard extensively before. So in that sense, no new information was really gleaned. And I think the American taxpayer really foresaw that. I don't think it was a surprise to anybody.
Involvement in it. And I'm going to talk about how the present administration has pretty much ignored any of the real concerns of working people. Arnie Carlson does a great job of representing the third-ring suburbs around Minneapolis. He does a pretty lousy job of representing the workers in Duluth and the Range.
And while we need to develop our economy and employ our people, we don't want to do it at the price of the great natural resources that we have, and this kind of a project would be a step in the wrong direction.
Were these Army blankets? Yes. You had them in the service? Yes. No kidding. Wow, that's great.
It's called Blanket Duluth, a first-time effort by UMD students, along with the Union Gospel Mission, to help the homeless and unfortunate stay warm. The idea came from Pi Sigma Epsilon, a marketing and sales co-ed fraternity. They started last night at 6 o'clock, collecting not only blankets, but winter clothing, boots, and sleeping bags as well. Their goal, 2,000 blankets. So far, they've got over 1,400.
What the Union Gospel will do is they've already gotten 300 calls looking for blankets, so they've got names and everything, and they'll distribute them as they need to.
The police and fire departments are involved as well. Both squad cars and fire rescue units have been given 2 blankets each for distribution. It doesn't take an Einstein to figure out when temperatures go down, thermostats go up, and that takes money. For many Duluthians, that creates a financial hardship.
This is also for people who are having problems making ends meet, for maybe single parent families that are having problems through the months, not just for the homeless.
If you didn't make it down to the University Collection Center, don't despair. The Union Gospel Church and Sam's Club, both open tomorrow at 9 a.m., will continue to serve as collection centers. In Duluth, Chip Wallace, News 6.
We hope as many people that feel the way we do as possible will join us, that they'll also plead with the city councilors on the planning committee to recommend that we do not do this, and hopefully we will be successful.
If we didn't pull one of those streets that was controversial, and I think there should always be that ultimate point. Councilor Bowman? Yes. Councilor Delbert? Yes. The property person that lives there, and we were talking in a meeting with Mr. Larson, and I think there should always be that ultimate point that people should be able to back out on. And the reason why I did set the numbers so high
plant cell around here directly working anymore, but clearly these agents, blasting agents, move by truck back and forth across the Iron Range, so that always remains a possibility of something going wrong like that. But again, they're highly regulated, and it's unlikely to.
We have only in mind at this point in time residentially owned townhomes. We feel that there's a market for smaller home ownership in Duluth, and we feel that that people would enjoy living in a townhome setting near the bay. Right now, and we have people all over it. Yeah. Mothers for just, you know, a population this size.
Well, I think it's really important to have a planned response to situations like this, so that the students feel like they're living in a world where adults are still responsible for some of their safety and some of their concerns. I think we have that responsibility. So.
That they run under, the money that their family has sent into it. The other thing that you should know is on stainless steel and
There are two purposes for the Criminal Offender Prevention Project, and the first one is to show youth the reasons why we have laws, the importance of laws, and to expose them to the criminal justice system. The second purpose is to show youth that there are job possibilities that exist in this system.
I think it's an excellent idea. I really do, because you don't have the crowds, the pushing, the shoving. You can get up to the counters.
Some perfume for my boyfriend's sister.
Great.
And something for my boyfriend.
Thanks, Duke and Michelle. Federal investigators worked throughout the day. It was their first complete day of investigation as they tried to determine just what happened to Flight 5719. Photographers were let into the scene for the first time this morning. Then this afternoon, portions of the wreckage were transported away from the scene section by section. As investigators continue to piece together information surrounding the accident, speculation on the cause of the crash has started to surface. Questions have been raised concerning the landing conditions Wednesday night. At the time of the crash, the cloud ceiling was at 400 feet, which according to Hibbing-Chisholm Airport officials was sufficient for a safe landing.
If you look on the IFR chart for the back course for the Hibbing here, it says 428 feet plus a mile visibility. All that in the weather at the time was reported 400 in a mile. So that means that he can still make the approach legally, but he can't go above 428 feet. So he was perfectly legal as far as we're concerned on what he was doing and within normal operating like everybody else does. It's an operation that goes on all the time here and at all other airports also.
Cliff Richards is a pilot for U.S. Air. He routinely flies the British Aerospace 31 Jetstream and says although conditions were not ideal, they weren't considered dangerous.
No, those conditions are so common this type of year. No, they're very common conditions.
The wreckage has been moved here to a hangar at the Hibbing-Chisholm Airport. It will remain here for some time. The NTSB will remove the portion of the wreckage that they need, ship it to Washington. The remainder of the plane will be given back to Express 2, the owners of it. And in the days to come, the investigation will continue not only here, but at the crash site. Duke and Michelle?
Questions? Yeah, we have a meeting set up next Monday at 4:45, I believe, the 13th. I don't think anybody's trying to hide anything. It's just that maybe councilors didn't ask the right questions. Councilors may suggest that the board get a little bit more involved in that budget process than they have been in the past.
I think that one of the key roles that the federal government can do is to make sure that every child, by the time that child reaches age 5, is ready to learn. That's a big part of education, because you cannot dump all the problems of society onto the schools and the school teachers and expect them to solve them. That's unfair to the teachers, to the administrators, and everybody associated with them.
Been involved in government, and you know what the most fun part of my job is? It's what we're doing here today. Seeing all these kids here and decorating the tree. It is really, really a lot of fun for me to be able to do this and be with you today. Because you know what? This tree would be awfully bare if you hadn't brought all those decorations down. Uh-oh, what's coming down the stairs? Santa Claus is coming into town. Looks like Santa Claus is already here, but...
No, Santa Claus is coming to City Hall.
Santa Claus came to City Hall, that's right. And you kids came to City Hall, and I appreciate it. Thank you again for coming, and thanks to the teachers and the schools and for the parents for coming down too.
Right now, what we're looking for is temporary housing for those people that cannot move back in, and we're looking now at Wednesday or Thursday before they'll be able. Some of those will be able to move back in, and of course, some of them will not be able to move back in for weeks, months.
I have asked the authority many questions and received very few answers.
Councilor Dorothy Bowman recently tabled Spirit Mountain's budget because she wants to know how many employees are getting paid extra money through an incentive program created by Executive Director Larry Hutchinson.
He finally said he thought 8 or 10.
How much is on each individual's W-2 has never actually been specifically asked for.
The proposed 1993-94 budget is $2.7 million. Hutchinson's base salary is near $74,000, not including his bonus of 1% of the profits.
That salary is way high for the city of Duluth.
There is a cap on this incentive of $10,000, so he cannot collect more than a $10,000 incentive.
In 1983, the gross sales were at $800,000. Season ticket holders, 367, and visits were at 60,000. The Hill lost over $500,000. 10 years later, gross sales more than tripled. Season ticket holders multiplied by almost 30, and visitation is nearing 1/3 of a million.
Everybody would be making money if they could just keep borrowing for their expenses.
The mountain borrowed almost $5 million in the fall of 1992. The city co-signed a revenue bond.
Without borrowing this money and this revenue bond, they would not be making a profit.
And we took all of that debt that was relatively short-term, and we spread it out over a longer period of time for a lower rate of interest, which brought our payments down.
Right, like refinancing the house.
We refinanced the house.
That is not running in the black. That's running in the red.
The Spirit Mountain Authority is the last budget issue before the City Council. They will meet and discuss the issue this Thursday. A vote is expected. In Duluth, Chip Wallace, News 6.
Announced in a chapel full of people. The chapel hadn't been that full since I get it. You know, when they find out they're going to see me for the guy with HIV. Had a friend of mine, and good friend of mine, who's on the foot. AIDS is the virus that causes AIDS. I decided that I wanted to speak out to my campus. I wanted to break down a lot of these barriers of the social stigma that has been created since the early 80s when we first saw the onset of AIDS.
We have pictures of her in our homeroom, and our homeroom teacher visits her during the summer and stuff, so we know a lot about her.
A week ago, the St. Louis County Social Services Department supplied 9th through 12th grade students at East with the first name and a description of a needy Northland senior citizen.
Well, his name is Donald, and he's 68, and he's an older man who he had just lost one of his dogs, and so he was asking for something just to keep him busy and warm clothes for the winter.
The students were asked to contribute gifts with their special senior in mind.
We liked a lot of books, a lot of magazines, big print, they said, and so a lot of people brought in books for him.
She recently had a stroke, so some things are tougher to open, and she can't get out to go grocery shopping much, so we brought her 4 boxes of food.
George, Richard, Laura, Sally. Before Project Joy, these were just names. Today, they're people that the students of East have gotten to know and whose lives have been changed.
A lot of people go out and buy special gifts, and that really makes the person's holiday a lot better.
I think it's really important that we're doing this and stuff, and it's even better that we know a little bit about the person we're helping for Project Joy.
At East High School, Barbara Riles, News 6. Work is well underway on the $35.5 million bridge widening and reconstruction project. Minnesota Department of Transportation officials say mild weather has allowed contractors to get ahead of schedule.
When you make your plans, assuming bad weather and you have good weather, it's all a very good opportunity for those contractors to advance the project even faster.
And that's important to the workers because for each day they finish ahead of their agreed-upon August 4th reopening target, the contractor will be paid a $21,000 a day incentive bonus. That money will be shared with the workers. Conversely, for every day after August 4th, the company will be penalized $21,000 a day.
They know it's out there, so they're pushing for it just as much as any of the other management, all the way down to the frontline people are all know it's out there. So, but they also know the penalties there too.
While the bonus pay is set up as an incentive to work hard and keep this project moving as quickly as possible, contractors say their #1 priority is still safety. Every worker walking a narrow steel girder many feet above the freezing bay knows the danger he or she faces. When the bridge was first built in 1958, 3 construction workers lost their lives. Company rules on this reconstruction project call for safety lines, and failure to hook in can result in firing.
Oh, the winds are much stronger up here than a person realizes when you're driving over in the car. You'll see tarps or something blow, and if they'll hit a guy, they'll take someone over the edge.
But safety precautions aren't slowing the bridge project down. Spokesmen say they're hoping to be finished by late July and are pushing to take advantage of the bonus. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Well, we're just continuing a tradition that they've had in the past here, giving away trees. We figured it's a good idea and we're going to keep doing it. And we figure it's a good spot for them so people can drive on down and pick some up.
Well, no, I sort of like, I'll hold this here, sort of like, huh?
Tell you what, Stan.
So we're very optimistic that the financing can be arranged, and this will not be taxpayer dollars. We'll be looking at some type of a revenue type bond.
After a while, after coming 3, 4, 5 years in a row, people do run out of things to see, and we have to continually add. That's the purpose of adding a facility like this to our community. The reason for that is that I compared salaries of similar positions around the state and found that Carl was at the bottom. And Carl does an outstanding job for the city of Duluth, there's no question about that. And I felt that he should at least be somewhere in the middle.
This is the boot camp at the Willow River Correctional Facility. It's a strictly run alternative to prison for minimum security juveniles. Since its beginning, the facility has proven an effective way to deal with juvenile offenders, with just 28% returning to prison. Wisconsin State Senator Bob Jauch would like a similar correctional facility built in northern Wisconsin to keep juveniles from being turned loose early due to overcrowding.
Reducing a juvenile back into the community simply because there is no additional room for a more violent or a more difficult or a more dangerous juvenile is an unacceptable policy and ought not be tolerated by the state of Wisconsin.
The Wisconsin prison system has been overcrowded for years. Lawmakers have set aside $3 million for this type of facility. Jauch thinks northern Wisconsin is the logical location because it will save mileage for law enforcement agencies transporting prisoners.
I'm suggesting that it be located in northern Wisconsin for several reasons. First of all, northern Wisconsin is the area in the state in which there is an acute need for short-term juvenile facility beds. There is no facility in northern Wisconsin. There is nothing north of Highway 29.
Jauch has written a letter to Governor Tommy Thompson requesting the facility come here. The matter goes to the legislature in January. In Superior, Derek Hines, News 6.
The back of the old Zenith machine building is being ripped down and the deteriorating bricks and mortar are being replaced. Dick Hicks has big plans for the turn-of-the-century building. He's putting in a gas station, large convenience store, and several shops. Hicks has a huge amount of space, 48,000 square feet all under one roof, and he wants to use as much of it as possible. With tourism growing and a number of new stores in the area, Canal Park is ripe for such a venture. At least that's what a couple of local business people thought, so now there's 2 gas stations and convenience stores going in back to back. Intercity Oil is planning to put 8 fueling positions, a convenience store, and several shops, including a fast food restaurant in the old Lyle Brothers building, just across the alley from Hicks' 6-pump site.
It's the #1 tourist attraction in the state of Minnesota. We also think that we can do a very good business there.
Hicks is hoping to lure customers by offering a different sort of convenience store. He'll cater particularly to tourists, offering things like fishing tackle and items visitors may have forgotten, such as ski mitts and socks. He also hopes to have food shops selling things like pizza, ice cream, and donuts. Hicks says he doesn't want to go head-to-head with ICO, but will not back down on his plans.
We solicited them a little bit on putting an ICO sign up there for their gas, but they wanted to do their own, so fine.
Hicks plans to open his gas station and store complex by mid-February. ICO plans to have its ICO Plaza open by May 15th. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
As Christmas Day draws near, last-minute Northland shoppers race the clock, and last-minute wishers squeezed in one more visit with St. Nick. There are 364 days in the year to buy holiday gifts, but you can always count on a shopping rush come Christmas Eve. Whether the person on your list needs a little help getting into the holiday spirit,
just turn it on, and you set it up there and it rings a little bell.
Or a little help getting up on Christmas morning.
Wake up! Rise and shine!
Most stores still have plenty of gifts to choose from come December 24th. And who was doing most of the last-minute shopping?
Mostly males, single males coming in for the wives, girlfriends.
Lots of guys coming in, kind of panic-stricken. That panicky look in their eyes, they were here.
That's okay, guys. We'll forgive you as long as the presents make it under the tree in time. But some women, like Linda Mager, also had a few holiday packages to pick up.
I have a list.
How many people you got to shop
I have about 4 gifts yet to get.
And about a little more than 4 hours, huh? To finish up.
I want to be done by noon.
Noon? That didn't leave much time. A dilemma common to last-minute shoppers.
Oh, they'll pick up anything that'll leave the tables and just anything they'll buy today because they want to have something to give.
What do most people want for Christmas? That's easy. A nationwide survey shows money tops the wish list. But if you're looking for something a little more personal, jewelry and flowers are always a hit. Let's check back in with Linda. A shirt, good move, clothing tops many wish lists as well. So even the old standbys are safe. A book, she's on the right track. And now that the shopping is done, what does Linda want for Christmas?
Not a kitchen appliance.
In Duluth, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
I haven't had no problems till today. Need a new battery, I think.
So, how cold did it get here last night? Any idea?
Last time I looked in there, it's probably about 20 below.
Many Northlanders went out to the garage or parking lot today and got an unpleasant surprise.
Just coming out to try and start it so it wouldn't, you know, die out on me, but I waited too long.
It's a 77 Ford Granada. It's a jump start. I'll call them and let them know you're on your way.
The phones were ringing off the hook at local tow truck companies. Dispatchers had to make lists of today's calls and send out the trucks one after the other. The wait for assistance was sure to be a long one.
We're running about 2 to 3 hours behind right now, and we've got 7 units running today.
Anywhere from an hour to 4 hours. We're getting caught up now because we have 2 wreckers going. At first this morning we only had 1, so it was about a 4.5 hour wait. But now it's catching up to about an hour to 2 hours.
A jump is all it took for many cars to get going, but some needed to be towed into garages for some serious thawing. Forecasters say temperatures could top 0 for the next few days, but motorists can expect bitter cold temps again by the weekend. In Duluth, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
Okay, well, have a good day.
As you can see, it's considerably larger there. This is about 1.5 frames.
Braxton Brown, this is our first.
We're going to help more and more to create through the Arrowhead College system an incubator here for young entrepreneurs, because that's really what makes the world go around. The Henry Fords, the Dodges, and others who create.
People who are working on their cars, you've seen so far.
More, yes. You haven't seen anybody that's just been stranded. The
Really?
snowmobilers,
So
they're mostly been drinking, and
they've been
they don't
drinking.
realize.
You just need to talk on these shots.
Usually their fingers begin, when they come back in, they get white. It's probably one of the first signs. And then after it thaws out, you might say when the blood flow gets to the fingertips, say pink starts to form. And if it's deep enough, you might develop blisters. And that's when you really need to be treated.
Well, it's all up to the Department of Justice. I mean, they have to make the decision as to whether or not they're going to appeal the judge's decision or they're going to bring another indictment.
Raising them on high, pronounce those famous words, whom God in his kind providence trained for loading near the zoo, and they will take perhaps hundreds of people. On January 1st of 1894, the village of West Duluth was united with the city of Duluth. And in honor of that 100-year celebration, we're announcing that there are plans that the entire year will be a centennial year dedicated to West Duluth and Duluth united for a century.
Duluth, Minnesota.
Here, here. Also lists a number of names of contact people.
One is to provide non-alcoholic drinks for those who may be the designated driver or who don't wish to consume alcohol. And the other is to make sure that none of their guests leave their home intending to drive after they've had some alcoholic drinks.
The accidents that do happen, the serious accidents, a lot of them are alcohol related, and we want to try to eliminate that.
Mayor Gary Doty will be reviewing the list of 4 priorities he talked about in his State of the City speech last year. They are protecting our natural resources, street repair, the future of the city's youth, and financial stability.
I organized a youth task force made up of young people in the city of Duluth who have met now, And they have decided that they want to go out into the community and hold open sessions for parents to come to and for young people to come to express their views.
This year, the mayor is presenting to both his critics and his constituents what he calls the big picture approach for 1994. Doty says he wants everyone to participate and contribute to Duluth's future.
And soon we're going to be announcing a formation of a program that will include the community in setting the vision and setting the goals for the future and determining where we want to go.
This system will soon be obsolete for Zenith Kramer Recycling and Disposal. The company has purchased a fleet of automated trucks and will begin collecting garbage from some of its customers with the new system by next week. With the faster automatic system, the company will now be able to serve up to 650 homes per day compared with its current 360. The truck fleet will be reduced from 7 to 4, with only one operator per vehicle instead of 2. In a news conference today, company spokesman said the system will mean a reduction in customer rates of 10.2%.
This rate reduction is only possible because of the efficiencies realized in this new system.
With the new automated system will come some new rules. Customers will be asked to push their cart within 2 feet of the curb and will be asked to place it so that the front is facing the street. The new system can only use the specially designed carts, which will be provided to Zenith Kramer customers for free. The size people will get will depend on their average volume of garbage. Spokesmen say the bin is easily moved and well designed.
The lid is raised easily and closes tightly to keep trash and odors in, water, insects, and animals out.
Zenith Kramer will begin delivering the new bins to their customers in parts of Duluth tomorrow and expect to have distribution complete within about 2 weeks. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
I want it understood that I'm not unhappy with the outcome of that vote. And I also want it understood that the Mesaba Daily News is a perfectly good newspaper. It's just that I'm concerned that all the residents in the southern half of the county are no longer going to have access to board proceedings.
mushers and their dog teams trickled into the Sawbill checkpoint throughout the morning. For some, it was just a quick stop. For others, it was a chance to rejuvenate after traveling all night.
I mean, everybody's got to take a break sometime.
By this point in the race, the journey has taken its toll on some of the dogs, forcing mushers to remove them from their teams.
The common things that you see at this stage of the race are some leg injuries, a little bit of diarrhea, and some of them are tired.
Frank Teasley, a veteran of the Iditarod but Bear Grease rookie, had to say goodbye to one of his strongest dogs.
He's never been dropped from a race before. He's eating, he's drinking, he's hydrated, his feet are fine. He got dropped because he's not pulling, and I have no idea. I mean, the vets have checked him out. You know, just like people, they have the good days and their bad days.
For the dogs that are forging on, the checkpoint provides a nice spot to sit and have a good meal, then throw on a warm blanket and catch up on some much-needed sleep. After the dogs are rested and fed, it's back onto the trail and onto the next checkpoint. As for the lead mushers, they're expected to arrive in Grand Marais, the halfway point of this race, sometime either late tonight or early tomorrow morning, depending on the weather. As for the weather, well, it's going to be very cold tonight, temperatures down to 25 below zero. On the Bear Grease Trail, Ted Rowlands, News 6.
Also, it's a pro-growth. By that, it's pro-growth, and it encourages business to expand and produce more jobs. And it's pro-deficit reduction because our spending cuts trim over $600 billion in 5 years from the budget, and that's how we fund the tax breaks and the business incentives. We don't borrow the money for it. We fund it out of tax or cuts in spending.
The things that he marched for and stood for, we want to come together and to remember the past and to unify ourselves so that there could be a better tomorrow for our children, for our young people.
Our side of the facts out to the other mining officials about how we feel about being locked up from National Steel, and let the other people down here that we're still more than willing to negotiate with the corporation anytime they want to.
Like I said, that would sell sheets of steel to the steel industry. Back in '86, the story as it's going to unfold does benefit the people on the island, opposed to the contracts up here with the steel workers. Negotiation. Business decision is bigger than just the union right now. So it really has to be a
accumulation of all of the stakeholders doing even more than they thought they had to do.
There's nothing to say that they can't take all of our land from us, and it's our property value is going down now. They're clear cutting it. It's not pasture land. It's not anything. It's not good for nothing.
There's salt everywhere.
Any of the water quality standards set in the 1972 Act. And the major cause of this failure is non-point source. Poison runoff from agricultural lands, from construction sites, from city streets. And that has to be the next frontier in the clean water program effort.
When I say program, I mean, the U-Bars has got, this is in the draft. I think just trying to find out what his schedule is. Yeah, we intended to have it tonight, but he had another schedule of events. And in all cases, the totals are the same. It just gives you a different,
I believe so strongly in the need for change in Washington, so strongly in the need to do something different out there, that I am pledging today, and I have a letter here with me that says that I hereby resign from the United States Senate because today I voted to raise your taxes. In other words, you can be assured that when Bob Welch goes to Washington, I am not going to vote to raise your taxes, not now, not ever.
Complaints to City Hall about sidewalks that look like this one are behind the new effort to force compliance with the city ordinance requiring property owners to keep their walks clean. The difference with the latest campaign centers on the possibility of fines for refusing to listen to requests to get the job done. City officials say the issue really is one of safety.
Many children throughout the city are being forced to walk in the street in order to get to school, and that is our prime concern. But beyond that, we also want to make sure that the sidewalk system in Duluth is accessible to all pedestrians. But our focus priority is on the schools and getting kids to school safely.
The city's new program will feature a series of letters and phone calls, warning property owners and suggesting organizations that can assist in clearing the blocked sidewalks. The final letter comes from Police Chief Scott Lyons. If the city is forced to do your work, expect to see the cost attached to your next tax bill. In Duluth, Duke Skorich, News 6.
About this. Given the state of public funding in Minnesota, they're going to scale it back a heck of a lot more. At the most, they're going to propose some sort of stub breakwater, 2 or 3, 4 ramps maybe.
Actually, today it's actually for the staff here at UMD, and there were some spaces that opened up, and in those cases we did see some students, and that's why I'm doing it now. I'm actually filling in for someone who canceled because there are a lot of people who are sick now with colds and stuff, but yet it's the time of year when they actually need blood the most with all winter accidents and things like that, so they give blood. It's actually what's sick.
Are we phosphoric acid natural flavors? Okay, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. So I'm done. Okay, now I just wait here then. Well, yeah.
Can you all see it now? No. All right.
There've never been any complaints if I said make it work.
And we're very pleased as a community that this is occurring and proud that this effort is being made, and we're all going to be benefiting as community people.
More people were injured than killed.
A lot more. But then they say they make a mistake in newspapers, TV. They always say automatic weapon TV. They always say automatic weapon. What most